it's a little bit of a specialized topic in some ways, but also kind of highlights different aspects of the platform from what we've been doing up to now, and it's also a little bit cutting edge in terms of the maturity of the software. So there'll be at least one little glitch that we'll have to work through, and maybe it'll take a little bit of sort of inspiration to think about on your parts to think about the value of this. So I'm just going to share my screen. And briefly, what we're going to do is explore elements of reproducible research with the AnVIL package, the AnVIL-Publish package. Just try and get my screen a little bit bigger for y'all. Just as before, we'll actually talk a little bit about R packages as a way of doing reproducible research, because I think that they're a great starting point. And then maybe see some of the features of AnVIL that make the work even more reproducible. And then we'll see the AnVIL-Publish package in action, which takes an R package and turns it into an AnVIL workspace that you can then interact with Jupyter notebooks that are based on the vignettes that you've written in your R package and provenance information in the metadata of the workspace and other features. So the key resources, of course, we'll be using AnVIL. We'll be talking about R packages, and the formal documentation for how to write an R package is called Writing R Extensions. That comes with your version of R. And there's also an excellent ebook, R Packages by Hadley Wickham and colleagues. We'll end up making a Docker container that's specialized for our purposes today. AnVIL-Publish actually requires a special piece of software that we needed to install, a couple of pieces of software that we needed to install. And so we created a Docker container. Vince did the same last time. And there's a great, a couple of resources about the idea is that we take an existing Docker container that works in AnVIL and we extend it. And you'd either extend the Jupyter Notebooks Docker container or the RStudio Docker container. And there's a great little tutorial from the AnVIL people about writing Docker containers for custom cloud environments. It says for Jupyter Notebooks, but it translates easily to the RStudio Docker containers as well. And the Terra Docker README also has some useful information. So let's see, what are we going to do? So hopefully, it looks like most people here I recognize, so we're probably on kind of similar page here. So I'm just going to get started. I'm going to go to, I guess I'll log out and start fresh. So I'll start by signing in with my Google account that I used to register for the course, and then I'll end up under workspaces. I hope you're following along. Workspaces and AnVIL-Publish. And what I'll do, I just need to make you guys a little smaller here in this window. Have a little bit more real estate. This AnVIL workshop publish is I'm going to clone it. Looks like I need to make this window bigger, the other one smaller. Make this a little wider here. AnVIL-Publish, I'm going to teardrop clone this workspace. Bioconductor workshop AnVIL-Publish, my name. It has to be globally unique. And then the billing project, Deep Pilots Bioconductor, June 7th, JUN 7. Deep Pilots Bioconductor, June 7. And then clone the workspace. And should happen pretty quickly. but it's not for me. So I refreshed the browser, and the workspace shows up here. I have this little message telling me that there'll be maintenance this afternoon. And then I wanted to go to this cloud environment, and I wanted to create a new cloud environment. So you should be able to click on this. If you can't, it's probably because you didn't clone the workspace, but clone the workspace. I'm going to make a custom environment. So I'm going to customize it. And then in this drop-down menu, I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom and choose custom environment. And then I just toggle over to the browser tab with my notes here and scroll down. So here I've got start a custom environment, customize it, drop-down menu, custom environment. And then in this custom environment, you need to paste this thing here from the notes is probably the easiest way to go. It says, this is the location of a Docker image in the Google Cloud. It's kind of like Docker Hub, but in the Google Cloud. And I've made this particular Docker image for the purposes of this course. It uses Bioconductor version 3.12, and this is actually the second iteration of this image. So I'm just going to grab this and go back, and then in this container image, I'm going to paste that in there. So it says GCR Google Compute Registry.io Bioconductor-Anvil Anvil-RStudio-Bioconductor-AnVILPublish, all in lowercase, :312-002. And then I'll just leave it sort of the minimal instance and go to next. And I'll get warning, Will Roger, you're about to use an unverified Docker image that could do all kinds of terrible things. I'm going to click create anyway and live with the consequences. And then up here, I should get cloud environment, and it should say creating. And you can see that it's got this RStudio icon. So I'm going to get an RStudio cloud environment. So hope people are at that stage. Great. See Andrew's thumb up. That's good. What I like to see. I'm going to, just while that's creating, it'll actually come up pretty quickly, I think. I'll just go back to our notes and see what we've missed. And in some ways, this is the important part, or the thing that I need to convince you is worthwhile, the sort of niche market that's kind of interesting. So the idea is that, RStudio provides a really rich environment for working in R. But in some ways, Jupyter notebooks are pretty valuable in some circumstances, like teaching circumstances, for instance, or if you're sharing an analysis, an interactive analysis with, say, your lab mates or your colleagues, who can basically manage to move the mouse to a Jupyter cell and press the carriage return key, but would be intimidated with writing code or navigating a markdown document in RStudio. Jupyter notebooks can be really useful for structuring that type of interaction. And you can make the notebook, a combination of text that guides whoever's using it through the steps so that they understand in a straightforward way that just focuses on the analysis. So there's a use case for Jupyter notebooks that I think is important. But if you look at one of these typical notebooks that we've been and workspaces that we've been looking at, there are a number of limitations about the way that things are presented. One is the way that you work with a Jupyter notebook is you edit it kind of interactively, so there's no sense of which version of the of a notebook you're looking at, or there could be if you followed a sufficient discipline. And then the workspace itself, it kind of has free-form text, but it doesn't like structure, doesn't tell you anything about like who's responsible for creating the workspace, or it could, but that's again up to the person who created the workspace, or what version the workspace is, or the idea of licensing software. I mean, is the workspace and the software in the workspace actually licensed for general use? And then like, when was the workspace created? Is it like a week old and so untested and full of bugs, or 3 years old and yesterday's analysis that's surely been supplanted by something more appropriate? So you'd really like the workspaces to be more comprehensive in terms of provenance and documentation. And then the other thing is that some of your users probably do want to use RStudio, and so there's like this kind of tension where you want to maintain the same material in R as an R vignette, say, and as a Jupyter notebook. So I'll also say that, for instance, when Kayla, I'll speak for Kayla, was developing the DE-Seq2 workflow that we looked at the other day, the interactive notebooks, actually, Kayla developed them in R and then translated them into Jupyter notebooks after the fact, because she was more comfortable working in the R environment for doing those types of operations instead of the Jupyter notebook, the RStudio environment instead of the Jupyter notebook. Okay, so that's kind of the purpose, and I think that what we've got now is we've got ourselves to the point where we can, we should say your cloud environment is ready, and so launch cloud environment. So I hope that people are, again, following along, and you have an RStudio environment that you're able to look at. And it looks just the same as before. It's just that it's got a couple of little tweaks that didn't exist in the original RStudio environment. So one of them is you can type in system2. Maybe I should make the font a little bit bigger here. What do I want to do? Settings, global options, appearance, font, maybe 14. We should go with 13 because 13 is an unlucky number, and I'm a little suspicious of how things are gonna go today. Okay, system 2. There's a piece of software called Notedown, and it's installed on this Docker image, the one, our specialized image, but not on the base image, and that's important. And we've also got a package called AnVIL-Publish installed that actually does the work of publishing publishing documents. It's actually available in Bioconductor, so we could have installed it from Bioconductor. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to retrieve another package that I've developed a little bit to demonstrate how you can use an R package for this sort of reproducible research idea. So what I'm going to do is under this file menu in RStudio, we did this last time with Vince, but I'll just kind of go through it a little bit more. Choose New Project and click on New Project. You get this New Project wizard. Click on Version Control and Git, and then for the URL, https github.com/mtmorgan/AnVILPublish demo, and then capitalization is important. So github.com, mtmorgan, AnVIL-Publish demo. And then the tricky thing, this create project as subdirectory of browse, and I just chose the home folder here, chose that. So my clone of my repository is going to look like this, and I'll just create a project. And you can see RStudio actually starts up again. Fresh session of RStudio. I'm actually in the AnVIL-Publish demo repository that I've cloned from Git. So this is the content of the repository as it existed on Git. And maybe I'll just switch over and see if there are any questions that people want to ask or fill in a little bit. Yeah, thanks, Vince, for the URL there, and the GitHub URL is github.com mtmorgan AnVIL-Publish demo for cloning. People doing okay? Excellent. Excellent. Good. So yeah. So this is actually the structure of an R package. It's kind of interesting, right? That it's just a collection of files. This is a plain file, and then folders that contain other plain text files. So that's all an R package is, almost all. Collections of files and folders in a particular organization. And I wanted to, there are some great tools for creating and managing R packages. I especially like this package called DevTools. And there's also GUI aspects of the interface here that you can use to create and manage packages. But I kind of wanted to, so the actually package development, creation development is actually really straightforward. So I wanted to look at this description file, and it's just a plain text file. I should be able to open it in RStudio, so I just clicked on it. And it's in this format called DCF, Debian Control Format. It consists of a bunch of tags and their values. So the first tag here is the name of the package, AnVIL-Publish demo. There's a short title, simple demonstration of AnVIL-Publish functionality. And then here's something interesting. There's a version number. This is a version number 0.0.1 of this package. And as I make changes to the package, I'll change the version number. It was created today, maybe yesterday, but got today's date. And then this authors at R tells me who, or describes in this file, who actually created this package. It turned out to be one of the authors was me, Martin Morgan. And then this role is kind of interesting. I authored some of the package, and then the CRE means create, but actually it means created the current release. So I'm like the person when things go wrong. I'm the person who is responsible for fixing the package. You'd reach out to me and say, hey, something's wrong with your package, can you fix it? And if the code were some of the code that I'd authored, I'd fix it, or maybe I'd reach out to one of the other authors that could exist in this package. So here I've got my email address, which is optional, but obviously for most roles, but for the creator role, you need to be able to reach someone. And then I've actually got my ORCID ID, so I get some academic credit for this. Then there's like a description and a license. The license Artistic 2.0 is basically very liberal. You can do almost whatever you want with it. And then there's some more information about the system dependencies that you need to have installed to do various things with this package. So the description file is metadata that's providing provenance about this package, which is going to be very useful. And then I wanted to look at maybe this R folder. And in most sort of analysis projects that one embarks on, one develops some functions that do something specific, or you encapsulate the analysis task in a function. And so you put the functions into this R folder. And I've created one function. It's just a plain old text file. It's an amazing function that is called helper. And when you invoke helper, it says in a helpful way, from here you can go anywhere. So it doesn't really do anything. This slogan was actually the slogan of the University of Idaho. And it was kind of like a mixed message, right? Like it's supposed to be empowering. Your education here can take you anywhere. But it also had this kind of backhanded thing about you can't get much worse than where we are now. From here you can go anywhere. So I've always liked these things. Also, old age homes are great for this. The one in my grandma's hometown was called the Golden Plow, which had very ominous kind of overtones. And it's actually very hard to come up with slogans that capture what you want to say. So anyway, from here you can go anywhere. And then there's actually some documentation. I'm using functionality called Roxygen. I've got a title, a description of what the helper function does. There's an example that I can run, and I'm making this function available for export for use outside the package. So I've got my function, and then I've actually got a man page, a help. This is like the help page that's been generated for me that would show up in R. Maybe we'll see it later as a standard help page, including the example and the information that I had from the other from the file. And then I wanted to look at this vignettes. This is kind of the interesting stuff here. So I've written a vignette, and I've called it introduction, _introduction, and .rmd, which means that it's written in Markdown, the R language flavor of Markdown. And so again, it's just a plain text file, and it starts with a little bit of so-called YAML. Again, sort of key value pairs. This is the title of the vignette, who wrote the vignette, and where I'm from, and then how it's supposed to be rendered as an HTML vignette. And then, perfect. Yeah. So, and then there is the vignette contents, which says, here's what you need to do to install the package. Then you can load it, and then you can test out the helper function, and then get information about the R session that you're using. So it's a little vignette, but actually you could imagine that this became much more comprehensive description of, say, an entire analysis that you'd worked on with these code chunks evaluated in the context of the text that you'd written. So I think actually we could probably visualize this. Let's see. Let's try this anyway. This is one of those things that that I haven't done before, so we're probably going to run into problems. Yeah. So it opened up. You should try clicking that knitter button, and what it does is it opens up a vignette. I think I can maybe view it in the sure I can view it in the browser here, the window that I've got open. But let me just stop share. I don't know. Just very briefly, I'll stop sharing and start sharing again, and choose this one here. So this is what it was. What it did. It created the vignette document that says this package illustrates a vignette with an executed code chunk showing how the helper function works. You type helper, and you get from here. You can go anywhere. So that's the way it is. I actually so I'll stop sharing that and go back. Hopefully, you're at the same stage. Yep, excellent. Yeah, to a Chrome window, you can adjust where it goes through some toggling that I'm not able to remember at the moment. So wait a minute. I wanted to go there. So are we back at RStudio? Yeah. All right, great. Okay, so we could go into the gory details of some of these other things, but that's kind of like the package. And you could imagine, for the experienced R user that you're sharing this with, or you yourself, you might say, hey, well, I'm going to go to the vignette and I'm going to run these code chunks, and that's going to be great. But you'd also like to share it with one of your users who has maybe less experience, and you'd like it to be a Jupyter notebook based on this vignette and with all of the other functionality that the package provides. So that's what the goal of AnVIL-Publish is to make this into an AnVIL workspace that contains the content of the vignette as a Jupyter notebook, as well as other functionality. I guess I wanted to say two more things. So the things that we've looked at are, well, the description file, the namespace, the R, and the man directory are required, but the vignettes are optional. And then you can also extend what the package contains by adding files and folders under this inst directory. So in the interest of making the entire AnVIL workspace contained within the single package, I've added some things here. There's a table that represents the participants in this analysis. I've just stolen this CSV file from the DESeq workspace. I've also included, and this is kind of interesting, the Docker files, which are also plain text files for the particular Docker image that we're using. So actually, we started with the bioconductor, the RStudio bioconductor image. We made sure that packages were up to date, and then we added Pandoc, which is a piece of software. I installed a couple of R and Bioconductor packages, including the AnVIL package and the AnVIL-Publish package. And then I installed this Python software called Notedown. So you can kind of see what's involved in writing a Docker file. It's not particularly complicated, and it's also part of the package. So there's the Docker file. We've looked at tables, and it could be that there are workflows that are also defined as part of the package that we'd want to introduce into the workspace as well. Although actually that functionality is still emerging. So what I wanted to do, things are okay? What I wanted to do was translate this AnVIL-Publish demo into a workspace. And there is one small little glitch here that we're going to work around, but let's see how it goes. Library, AnVIL-Publish demo. AnVIL-Publish. And what I do is I say that I want to publish as a workspace the content of the directory AnVIL-Publish demo. And then I have to, so it's going to look in this package that I've got over here. It's going to parse all of the stuff that some of the stuff that we've looked at and translate it into a workspace. And I have to tell it which billing project I want the workspace to be produced under. And so I'll call it this one here, the Deep Pilots Bioconductor June 7th. And then I want to tell it which workspace I want to update or create. And usually I create a new workspace, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the name of the workspace that I'm currently in, and I'm going to actually update the content of this current workspace with the content of this package that I happen to be looking at within RStudio. It's a little bit meta and confusing, but the idea is that you could actually create any workspace that you wanted, and I'm just choosing to update this current one. So I'm going to do this. I'm crossing my fingers now, so we'll just see what happens here. And then it looks kind of promising. So it says, okay, this stuff is actually an artifact of reading in that participants.csv file, so that's kind of encouraging. And then here you can see it's processing this RMD file. And what it does is it processes it to a so-called markdown file, and then it translates the markdown file into a Jupyter notebook. And then it sends all of that information and the description information back to my workspace. So I'm going to go back up to workspaces, and I'm going to look at AnVIL-Publish MT Morgan. I'm just going to reload the workspace. So I'm now just at the dashboard of the workspace that this RStudio environment is running in. And now you can see that actually the dashboard is populated with the information from the description file. So the title of the workspace is Simple Demonstration of AnVIL-Publish Functionality. It knows that I'm the author and the creator, and it has a link to my ORCID ID. And this maintainer means it knows that I'm the one that you're gonna, if you run into trouble with this workspace, you should contact me. It has the license, Artistic 2.0, and the version of the package, the description, and then there's information on a couple of notebooks and a vignette. The vignette, an introduction to the AnVIL-Publish demo package that came from this A_introduction written by me. And then this is, if you wanted to cite this workspace, this is how you'd cite it in an academic publication. It's a citation to the Bioconductor package. It tells you about the version of R and Bioconductor that were in use when the workspace was created. So you can think, well, am I using the correct version of R and Bioconductor? And then it also has a date stamp for when the dashboard was created. 1636 sounds like it's, UTC or something like that. So that's the first thing. We've got all of this provenance documentation here, and that's good. I'm going to go over and look at the notebooks. There's this notebook which was auto-generated, and it says if you run these commands, then you'll have all of the software that you need for the rest of the notebooks. That's not quite exactly true, I realize, but that's an automatically generated notebook. And then the other one that I wanted to look at is the vignette that we looked at. And we'll see that there's a problem, but that'll be okay. We'll come back and fix it, and that's kind of interesting. Actually, you can see here that something's gone not quite right. This code chunk, this first code chunk, hasn't been formatted as a code chunk. But then we've got the text of the vignette, and then this cell that if we were to switch our cloud environment to an R-based Jupyter notebook, we could evaluate this and it would run, and we could run that. So we've almost, this is a little bug that we'll have to dig into. We've almost translated the R Markdown notebook into this Jupyter notebook, and then our less sophisticated user could walk through the notebook and accomplish what it was that we wanted. We've also created a participant table from the tables element of the CSV file in the tables component of the package directory. So now we've got the information from the CSV file in this participant table. So that's pretty cool. So what we've done is gone from our R-based package to this AnVIL workspace, and in the process we've got lots of provenance information about the package automatically carried forward with us, in addition to the notebook itself being translated. So I'll stop, and are there questions there?
Well, I tried to do it and I got a 400. So I don't expect us to debug it, but just make sure other folks have succeeded with those commands.
Yeah, there could be problems there. So I'll just go back here, and the thing that I discovered was that so the first thing is that you have to be able to you have to use update equals true. There's another option, create, which is supposed to work but doesn't. And then this workspace has to belong to use, and it has to be spelled correctly. So if I try to do this, but with my usual typo, Mogran, not being able to type my own name, I get a set dashboard failed, status code 404, client error, you do not have permission, it doesn't exist, or you do not have permission to use it. And I'm guessing, Vince, that that's what you saw. Were other people more or less successful?
May I ask a question, Martin?
Yeah. Sure.
So it worked really nicely for me. I have tried a similar thing, in concept at least, on the Renko platform from the Swiss Data Science Center. And there it was actually quite a struggle, because if you started from the wrong Docker image that wouldn't provide everything that the cloud environment would expect there to be, it wouldn't work in the end. So is there a restriction or a recommendation what Docker images we can start from here, or is that pretty open?
Do you mean when you're customizing a Docker image?
Yeah, so maybe I didn't understand the process correctly, but when I publish this workspace, isn't it building a Docker image in the background?
No, actually, it's just populating. It's just populating this particular workspace, the workspace that you've identified here, with the information from the package. It doesn't create a custom Docker image.
I see.
And so like if we were to want to run one of these notebooks, we'd made it available to our users or whatever. The user would, they'd want to choose a cloud environment that was not the custom environment, but the standard R Bioconductor environment, and then the notebooks would be evaluable.
I see. That's where you select basically the runtime image.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. And
why did you use a custom
Docker image?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Why did you use a custom Docker image here?
Yeah, it's because I needed this extra little. So the AnVIL-Publish package has a special software requirement. We should look at it here. It's explicable in the Docker file if you have a little patience with it. But so like this is actually the RStudio Bioconductor RStudio environment that we use, and I actually needed to have pandoc available, and I also needed to have this Python module available. And initially, I thought that I'd get you guys to like open this console and type pip3 install notedown, but it turns out that you need to install it as root user and not as an end user, and you can't install it as a root user interactively once you've launched the standard. And the same is true for this, for installing pandoc. That's an operation that you need to have root privileges for. And in the runtime, you don't, when the Docker container is actually running, you don't have those permissions. So like if I were to open a console window here and try and run apt get update, it would say you can't do that because you're not root, and there's no way to get into root. So I had to have this custom Docker image so that I could have my own special software that the AnVIL-Publish package needs.
Will those be in the next AnVIL Bioconductor image?
No, because, well, no, because well, first of all, it turns out that there is a pandoc, and now that I've sort of thought about it a little bit more, RStudio comes with pandoc. I just needed to point to the right pandoc. And then the notedown Python package is so specialized, it's only used by this one Bioconductor package. I wouldn't expect the Bioconductor maintainers to include it in the base image of a Bioconductor. But others could overrule me, of course. I wanted to, is that okay? Is that good? I wanted to make a change to my vignette. And I'm just going to open it up, encourage you to do the same. This came from a template. I don't really like it, so I'm going to take it out. It formats the output in a way. And then I wanted to add a little text comment here to configure your session of your notebook session. Let's say session. Evaluate the following commands. So I've just added a little bit of text to my markdown file, and I'll save it. And then I'll go up to the description file, and because I've made a change in the package, I'll switch the version to 0.0.0.2. And I could commit this to Git, but that's kind of not what I wanted to demonstrate. I've made a change to the Docker file, and so I wanted to update the workspace that I've created to reflect my changes. So just as a workspace command, again, with update equals true. and it'll do everything that it did before. And then when I go and look at the notebooks and this notebook, I can see, I can see that I chose the wrong notebook. And look at this notebook, I can see that the notebook has been updated to reflect the changes that I made in the vignette. So it's really straightforward to synchronize the current version of the package with the current workspace. Also, if I go back to the dashboard and reload it, you can see that the version is now 0.0.2. So I've got like provenance on the package. Presumably the date, the timestamp has also been updated. So I've got provenance on the package that tells me about the workspace that I'm using. And a classic problem, if you've ever tried to support software where you've shared something with your users or with your colleagues, is that they're using a different version than you are. And so usually the first stop is, what version of the software are you using? And they say 0.001, and you say, oh, well, you should be using 0.002, which is always good because that sends them off getting to 0.002 and frees you up to do other things or come up with the answer while they're busy working. Sound good?
Sorry, what's that? How did the version get updated on the workspace?
I just changed it in the package description file here. And then when I
run anything? Oh,
I ran this as a workspace command
right.
again.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
May I ask another question regarding the analysis environment?
Yeah.
So in thinking along lines of reproducible research, would there be a way how I can also control what kind of analysis environment my workspace is run in? I mean, is there a way to specify which Docker image, for example, should be used?
That's a good question. I mean, you could, so you could, there are different versions of how you could do that, right? So you could, you could add text here that says, like you can also, if there's a README file, you can also add the README file to this output, thanks to some contribution from Vince. So in the README file that becomes part of this this dashboard, you could say you should always, when you go up to the cloud environment, you should choose the Docker image that you want. So there's that way. You could also, I mean, in the notebook itself, you could include a command that says, check the Docker image and code it that way. But I don't think that there's a way that you can specify the Docker image. Like when you launch this workspace, launch a particular Docker image. I don't think you can do that. I can see how it would be a problem for you.
I wonder if you could keep a Packer. I mean, this wouldn't resolve the Docker thing, but put a Packer directory in the workspace that you then copy to the user's disk to reuse your package repository. I mean,
yeah,
as a partial one step of reproducibility, and then I guess you could also put in a check about the Docker image, but as far as the packages go.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to think about how to implement that. So you could imagine that there would be a table here, a folder called bucket. And in there you had objects that were copied to the bucket associated with the workspace. That's an interesting possibility. And so like over here in this files, you'd have the packer information. That would be an interesting customization. So let's just make one more change. So I'm back in the description file, and it seems like if you've been following along, you're actually now contributing to this package, maybe even authoring it. So you should add yourself. So you can say person, and then given equals who I'm a family person. And then my role is maybe a contributor, CTB. I've contributed to the package. I'll just like indent this a little bit more to my liking. And less to my liking. What I've done is added another person. And actually there's tools in here that we could use to build this package and check it. We could build and check it to make sure that the formatting and so on was correct. But let's hope that we've done this correctly. Comma. So we've got a vector of persons, the first person and the second person. And then, of course, this is a new version of the package, so we'll bump the version to 3 and save it and update the workspace again. And then when we go to the dashboard and reload it for some reason, we can see that I'm a person is also listed as a contributor, and so their role in making the workspace and the package has been acknowledged in an appropriate way. If we'd made I'm a person an author, which is probably a more interesting choice, so let's try to make I'm a person. So this will be version 4 of the workspace. Is actually an author. Maybe they're also the copyright holder. I'm not sure why I'm a person holds the copyright, but and then when I create my workspace again, go back to the dashboard, reload the page. Then I'm a person is an author and a copyright holder. And because they're an author, they also get an acknowledgement in the citation. So getting credit again for their authorship of the package.
Martin, does this work out of the box for any R package?
So the main challenge is actually the vignettes, and as you saw in the very first notebook that we looked at, there was some little glitch about like when you had these two code chunks that weren't separated by text, it didn't parse things correctly. It also doesn't manage images, and it doesn't deal well with code chunks that are set to unevaluate. They're always evaluated. So if the vignette follows some basic guidelines, it works okay. And I'll actually switch over to a different user. We're just about out of time here, so back to my normal self, and I'll change the permissions at the end of today for what I'm going to show you. But actually, there are a number of packages that have been translated using AnVIL-Publish. So for instance, the AnVIL package that we've used has been translated into the notebooks and so on. Here are the contributors of an AnVIL workspace. And the AnVIL, this was a kind of a fun one, the AnVIL-Publish package has also been translated into a workspace. And Vince has worked on BBS Pack, BioC File Cache Gen 3, or Collectl, and Ontoproc. So actually, a lot of these bioconductor packages could potentially be translated into AnVIL workspaces with the vignettes accessible via notebooks. Cool, eh?
Yeah, it's really cool.
All right. Well, we're just at the end of time. I wanted to say that next week is I've forgotten what I called it. Presentations by you guys. So I hope that some of you have been using AnVIL or will take the next week to explore AnVIL and develop a workspace that you're willing to share with the rest of us. And we'll divvy up the time amongst the people who volunteer at the beginning of the next session to talk about their workspace, setting a maximum time. If it takes less, that'll be fine. So I hope that you'll take a little bit of time, participant stories or something like that. I hope that you'll take a little bit of time to maybe work on a workspace, or even if that proves not feasible, to at least reflect on the course material and think about the important lessons learned that you want to share with other people who have been participating. All right, I think we're at the end of the hour. I'm happy to stay on and talk more, but we should sign off and say thanks for attending.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Martin. Really glad to see that.
Thank you very much.